Hello and welcome to The Scenic Route with me, Victoria Stewart, where we talk about roads less traveled, where people have taken a pivot, made a turn, learned something new, and started to shift their lives. And where it's taken them in unexpected places, because a lot of times when we kind of allow things to happen, follow our curiosity, we end up in places way better than we could ever have imagined. So I'm very excited to have Maren Londahl-Smidt here today. We're good friends. We've known each other for a while. She's a therapist, cash flow strategist, and fellow Profit for Keeps coach. So Maren, thank you for being here. I'm so excited. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I have a private practice, so I am a therapist, and I also have a coaching business where I love working with therapists, especially with ADHD, around money, whether it's money mindset, organization, whatever that might be. And of course, I love Profit for Keeps as well, which is what connected us.
Yes. Maren was my first practice client.
I know. It's so funny to think about that as well. Because now, it's been a couple years now, two or 3 years or something like that. I don't even know. Time flies. And I think back and I think, oh yeah, Victoria was my coach. That's where I started.
Exactly. So just to start us off to get a little understanding of where you came from, did you always imagine yourself as a therapist? Is that where you started off? Or what were you imagining when you were a kid or in college or wherever?
So I'm very much so in the moment. If human design, I'm a manifesting generator. I'm a 6/2, so I respond to different things. And I found this out in my adult life. But I actually went to grad school twice for different therapy degrees. And my first one, I was living in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, if you can't tell the accent. Not that I'm Southern or anything.
No, not at all.
But I moved to the beach after undergrad. And so I've ridden and shown horses my entire life. And so I was working at a barn and I did the shows for, I think it was about a year or so. And then I said, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to do this for fun, not for my job. And then I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? What I went to undergrad for, it was, not that there was anything wrong with it. It was human development, but here I am thinking, I don't know what to do with this degree. And so I actually went online to look at grad schools and found one that sounded fun. And that's how I became a therapist. So I started with that. And that was the first one. And then I took some time off and then decided that I wanted to be in healthcare and went back for my MSW, which is Master's in Social Work. And then I said I didn't want to be in private practice, and here I am.
So I'm curious how that happened. Like, how did you go from working in, well, I'm assuming you're saying healthcare, so in like a hospital setting or doctor's office setting. Like, how did that begin to shift for you? Like, how did that show up?
So I started in the emergency room, and which that's where I wanted to be. Exciting, you're always moving, and I have ADHD. And so I did an internship for about 9 months to a year. And then I got my first job in the ER and worked there for, I think it was a little under 3 years. And then a recruiter reached out to me from a local hospital. And then I did that interview, and the pay was not what I needed it to be. And I knew I couldn't live off of it. And so that's what kept me in the ER. And I said, well, maybe I'll just explore other options, And so then I applied for the healthcare system that I ended up working at, which was inside of a doctor's office. And I still stayed on PRN with my other job because I did a lot of their admin stuff and all the numbers, which is funny looking at it now. I did chart audits. And looking back,
building the skills early.
I didn't even realize that. And while I did like it there, I actually realized that I was a lot more burned out than I knew I was, because
Mm-hmm.
all I knew is go, go, go. And when you work in the, hospital of any sort of setting, you don't get a ton of downtime because you
Yeah.
never know what's coming through the door. So I always had, and I loved the job. I love the people, but my energy, I was just depleted at that point and I couldn't do it anymore. And so then I went to a doctor's office and I worked in primary care and I did brief therapy, which I did love. And I had a great doctor's office that I was at. But again, I wasn't hitting income goals. And
Mm.
so I had always had to work a second job to be able to do the things that I
Wow.
enjoyed, and that's where it was, okay, let me take a step back from this. No idea where this even came from, but I remember calling or texting a friend from grad school and talking about private practice. And basically he said to me, if you want to be a therapist, this is the way to go. The freedom, you can set your own rates. He was private pay. And one of the things that I have never liked at all about healthcare settings or any setting, insurance in general, is how the client, you're not really working for the client.
Yeah.
It's what somebody else says. And that's not why I got into this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because and could you just give an example for people who aren't aware of like how that works? Because it is very bizarre.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So whenever I was in the healthcare system that I was on, you have in network and then there's out of network. And so I had a client that was in network and you have a copay or you have a high deductible plan. So the high deductible plan, they have to basically pay out of pocket to meet their deductible until it gets lower. Well, the healthcare, they have a whole different insurance sort of thing. I had a client and I told him, I remember saying to this person, make sure that you call your insurance company before our first appointment. You want to see how much you're going to be paying. Didn't call. So I get a voicemail after our first session and they got a bill of $400 to $500 for that first session. I wasn't getting but a real small percentage of that.
Yeah.
And it's whatever contract they had. And so immediately said, and I'd already started my practice at this point, and immediately said, I can't afford to do this. I can't pay $500 for one therapy session. And thinking, I'm not asking you to pay 500. And this was me in general, is I would never ask somebody to pay in that setting because I knew the quality of care they could get would be so much better in private practice. And so then I told him, I said, well, I actually have my practice and I had how I referred out at that point, how it was set up. And then I told him, I said, well, this is, I think at that point I was at 150 maybe, and I was private pay. And immediately said, oh, that sounds great.
Well, in comparison to $400.
I know.
I know. Wow, it's a bargain.
And I think back at, looking back at that and, just so many conversations I have around money and, having the conversation, how do I ask for this? And I'm thinking, they're over here charging $500 and I'm getting like 1% of that, And a lot of our clients don't know any different. So they don't know that they have options either.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were working in this framework. You realized the money isn't moneying, right?
Yeah.
Like the income isn't working out. What were besides talking to your friend, like what was that like experience of moving and starting to build your own practice? Because besides working at the barn, had you had other business experience before this?
So I did Mary Kay for a hot minute between, I went to grad school, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I took a break and then I did some Mary Kay and nannying, but I didn't know what I was doing at all on the business side at that point. I was not running a business. I was probably, 27 at that point. And then, but that was really my only business experience. And I actually started my practice during the pandemic, so really early on. And so it was all telehealth. And then I had a client that wanted to be in person. So I, of course, shifted to that. But yeah, you start a private practice. We're great therapists. I don't know how to run a business. I don't know about all these things. I don't know how to pay myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I was very intentional, and I am so glad that I did this, is I started to build my practice when I was still at my other job. I did not just
Yeah.
leave, and I did it really intentional. At that point, I was on a single income. I had a mortgage, I didn't have a whole lot of buffer room at that point in what my finances looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I wanted to build a business that worked for me, but where my clients, I could really show up for them. And I knew that meant I could not just up and leave.
Yep. Yep. So how did you do that? Just, I'm curious, because we can talk about
Yeah.
it here. We could talk about it in your building
Yes.
coaching practice. But
Yes.
like, how did you
Exactly.
sort out like how long you stayed versus how long you grew before you
Yes.
moved?
So I was really strategic about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad I did it that way. And I really would not recommend in general to just up and leave anybody's job if your business isn't built up at all, because you don't know what you're stepping into.
Right.
And so I'm so glad I did it that way. And I had a hard boundary of no weekends. I worked in the ER for quite a few years. I was not going back to that. I'll do admin stuff on the weekends, but I'm not seeing clients on the weekends. That's not an option. And so I started on 2 days a week on Mondays and only 2 clients. And honestly, my energy level was also really different. It was just and I think it was building something for myself was part of that. And then when I started to add on a third night, so I did Monday, Tuesday, then I added 1 client on Wednesday, that's what told me it was time to step away from one of my days at my full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I wanted to make sure I was vested. And so I waited for that literally to the week to make sure that I didn't lose any of that. And so then at that point, I added on Fridays. And I don't think any of my clients went to Fridays at that point, but I also knew what I was doing strategically. I wanted to make sure I had a part-time caseload and that I have clients that I knew were going to be consistent, so I could make that step. And then once Fridays were full, at that point, that's whenever I said, okay, it's time. This was towards the end of the summer, and we were going to Europe for 2 weeks in September. So I was also really strategic about this. I could have left at that point, but I had a lot of PTO and I wanted to get paid on my vacation.
Yeah.
And then I also knew that Christmas was coming up and the holidays. And so I decided to stay. And I actually already had the week off between Christmas and New Year's. And then I think it was January 2nd or 3rd is when I officially stepped away.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's ever a perfect time, and we're always going to be scared. But I also think there's a better time and there's a better way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the way to be percolating on it as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like you took your time, you thought it through, you did a little at a time, because you could have realized, wow, I really don't like this.
And that was one of my reasons, because I didn't want to leave my job, because what if I hated it?
Yeah.
I didn't know if I'd love it or not. I was terrified.
Yeah. So you get a taster, right? And you're like, oh, wow, I really like this.
Yeah, I was completely terrified. And then I went full-time private practice, and that's when all the money anxiety started to come up.
And why do you think that was? Why did it come up then? Was it because it was just you? It's like you, no boss?
No, well, yes and no. I think it's, when we go to grad school, we're taught how to be therapists. And I really learned how to be a therapist outside of grad school with the different trainings, because I do a lot of attachment work. And I also do brain spotting. And those are the things that really taught me how to be a therapist. How to sit with this feeling, or, how to take a client from here to here. Well, so then I opened up my own business. And when I was working for another job, they put aside money for taxes.
Yeah.
I didn't need PTO because I had it from them.
Right.
So it was all consistent. And then I was just I did all the spreadsheets, I thought I had a system. And then whenever I went full time and I didn't have that full time job, I almost froze, because I remember looking and I'd see the income coming in and I'd say, well, but I don't know how much to pay myself.
Yeah.
I don't know how much to set aside for taxes. And I had a really expensive accountant at that point, and I apparently was not paying them for them to tell me what to set aside for quarterly taxes. And I had to pay them extra for that.
Yeah.
I'm not
You're like, what?
Yeah. So I think for a while I had some trauma related to my accountant as well. Because that was my most expensive business expense at that point.
Right.
You know, they were doing my bookkeeping and all of that. So I thought, oh, this is what everybody pays. And then I started asking around and said, oh, you don't pay $1,000 a month, you know, when you're first starting out. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I think it was 900 and something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was not cheap.
Significant when you're brand new. It's like huge.
Yeah, and they wouldn't even tell me what to set aside for taxes, you know. So I had, and at that point I said, I'm not paying anymore. So I found a different accountant who I love and was exactly what I needed. But I did not know what to pay myself. And so, you know, that's kind of how I found Profit for Keeps is I love YNAB. One of my therapy clients told me about YNAB and said, you need a budget. So I tried that and it was great, but only focus on the personal side. It didn't tell me anything about the business. And I set up a business budget with it as well. And then there was still something missing. And then I did Profit First. I love Profit First. Profit First is great, but it was way too many bank accounts. Yeah. And I have ADHD. And so there's too many options, you know. So if you tell me to pick a percentage between this and this, I want to know what percentage. That's why I'm asking you. Tell me what percentage it needs to be.
Specific, right?
Yeah, I needed it to be really specific, and I could not get that. And so I think all of that was just too overwhelming for me. And I would continue to ask about the taxes, you know. Okay, but what should my percentage be? You know, it should be between this and this. No, I want you to tell me what my percentage should be. And so then I had loosely followed Amber Duggar, the founder of Profit for Keeps, who we both know very well, but for a couple of years. And I remember her, there was, when she had first started her coaching certification, you know, I remembered looking at that email and thinking, oh, this sounds really cool. Maybe I want to do this. I didn't have time at that point. I was in the midst of building my private practice. So then I met with her and decided, well, I'm going to try Profit for Keeps first. And that's when I met you as well. And that's where everything changed because my personal and business were so connected. And it told me exactly what to set aside, exactly what to pay myself, you know, and it helped me figure out what I wanted my life to look like, which was freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious because you were doing all this exploration for yourself, for building the business. When we met, when you had just started Profit for Keeps,
yes,
you were already thinking of starting a coaching business.
Yes.
I'm curious, like, was that through this exploration on the financial side, or was something else also happening that like?
So yeah, that's a really great question. So I had started my private practice, and at this point I can't remember exactly. I'd say 3/4 to full of clients at that point, or what I thought it was. I was getting really overwhelmed with the systems. And, you know, so it was, at this point, I knew I couldn't do it all on my own. I needed support with it. And again, I have ADHD. And so, you know, the chaos that tends to happen in the background, and it was keeping up with notes, you know, okay, I have all these emails, or I need to remember to do this thing or that thing, you know, networking, marketing, you know, all of those different things. And so I had to take a step back, and I was overwhelmed at that point. So it was, do I join a group practice or do I bring on a VA? So I actually did coaching at that point to work on my systems. And on my last coaching call, I had most of my systems in place that I needed and had decided that it was best for me to have a VA or support team versus going to a group practice, because for me as a neurodivergent individual, you know, that's the best thing I can do for myself, which I did not know at that time. And now I do. And, you know, so that was a big piece of it. And on my last session, he asked me, he goes, so what do you want to focus on today? I have no idea where this came from, still to this day. And I go, let's talk about alternate streams of income. No idea where it came from. And so Then it was, oh, okay, what are you thinking? Maybe I want to do a podcast. I don't know. And then I realized that I really didn't have time to do a podcast at that point. And so then coaching came up of, okay, what do you want to do? Well, I love helping people, start their practice. I also love helping people with money and setting up kind of the systems. So that's where it all came together and was, do I start my coaching business and build everything, my whole framework from the ground up, or do I find something that's already there? And I knew I wanted something with profit first and why now. And so then I came across Amber, and that was exactly from what I knew. That's what she did. Now I know there's a lot more to it than that, but at that point, yeah.
So I know a secret about you is that you're a systems magician. So how did you figure that out through this coaching that you did, this business coaching to set up your systems, or is that something you've always?
I think it's always been there. I just needed kind of a little bit of tweak on what the private practice systems would look like, of how to remember to do my notes, oh, I didn't realize that there were these project management tools out there, different things like that. And I think with the money, it just kind of really made sense. Kind of like I said, I loved YNAB, and I was determined. It just clicked for me as, oh, now I know exactly what's in my account at any point in time, but why am I still short? Why am I not hitting my income goals at this point? And I think that's where Profit for Keeps really came in and really changed everything.
Yeah, the reverse engineered revenue goal that tells you where to put everything. It's just like, oh, okay, well, and whether you can meet it or not, right? Like,
yes.
It helps you figure out like, oh, well, how do I meet it? Like, do I need to add a client? Do I need to reshuffle how I'm charging? Like, right? It just opens up this. Like,
it's like this whole new world. It's like you open up the door and it's magic. It's not just adding another client. And a lot of times it's really not about needing more clients. It's not knowing what needs to go where. And also not really your business and personal are not connected. So a lot of times we just look at the business finances, but we don't look at personal. And they're so interconnected. I mean, it's just a game changer.
Yeah, because it can look like your business is like doing great, but if you can't pay yourself to support the life you want to live, then there's a big disconnect happening.
Exactly. And then we charge because Susie down the road is charging this, so I should be charging that. And she's doing really good. So if I charge what she does, then I'll be good.
And not, I should charge how I want to run the business, how many clients I want to see, how I want to fund my life. I want to take this many vacations. I would love to donate $1 bajillion to my favorite thing, or whatever the case may be, right? Like that's the beautiful thing.
Yes.
That it's so individualized.
Yes, exactly. So I agree with that. It really is so individualized, and it was a system that I didn't know that I needed. And I didn't realize how much I needed it. I remember it was probably 1 or 2 weeks in, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the best thing. It was like going into a candy store, and you haven't been into one for 10 years, and you found that thing. You're like, I want it all right now.
Yeah. So you started the certification. Well, you implemented Profit for Keeps for yourself. You started the certification. What have you learned in this process? Because you almost were doing it simultaneously.
Yes.
Like what were like the biggest ahas? What was the coolest thing? Like, what would you love to share about this journey?
It was, I think the whole thing, and it's, I'm in the process of doing a rebrand right now, and, some of it has come out, but not the full rebrand. And I look back and think, when I first started, I'm so glad I didn't go into that full website design, because I didn't realize this is where I would be, or this would be my niche. I've had so many different niches of trying to figure out what it was until I got to where I am now. But I think it's also personal growth, and realizing, and I think one of the big things for me with having ADHD is capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I need to hit these income goals, and this is what I need to charge, and I want to have an impact on people. But I also know I can't see 6, 7, 8 clients a day. It's not possible for me. That sends me straight into burnout.
Yep.
And I think, with Profit for Joy, and just kind of, well, this is my why. These are the things I need to make sure that I incorporate into my life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those, there's so many things I've learned about the journey and, how it got me to where I was. But I think Profit for Keeps almost kind of brought it all together and kind of helped me figure out, okay, this is what's next. Not that I'm not going to do anything with therapy anymore, because I still have a private practice. But now more of my energy is doing this thing over here.
Yeah. And I will just reflect something back to you and see if it resonates. But it seems like maybe another superpower of yours is that you're continuously learning and implementing, like, and evolving. It's almost like a lot of us get stuck in this, like, I'm doing this. Okay, I have to stop and redo and stop and redo. And you are like evolving as you go rather than being like, I have to start over.
Yeah, I think so. Being a horseback rider, there's a lot of mindset that comes into that. And I was I actually did do my first horse show in almost 5 years about a month or two ago, which was super cool. But I remember when I did that, and there was so much mindset that came into it. And I had somebody, one of my friends, she comes up to me and she goes, "Are you nervous?" And I go, no, I guess not. And I also intentionally went in and said, I want to do this differently, because my previous life, I was on the road all the time. I was traveling, my weekends, that's everything I was doing. And I don't want it to be like that, because I can't do that anymore as well.
Yeah.
Like, I have to adult, that sort of thing.
Yeah. But we're not like teenagers anymore.
Yeah. I know. But the mindset piece, I just kind of took a step back and thought, oh my gosh, this is such a huge part of everything that we do as a business owner. Not that there's not other parts, but I kind of took a step back, because I don't even know that I realized how much mindset work I was doing, because I had been an equestrian and, had a trainer and shown for so many years that that's part of what we were doing already. So it was just kind of natural for me, I think. And then I also would say that I learned really about how I work, and human design has been a big part of that. But I also have learned that I'm a pattern thinker. And so I think in patterns, and for me to move forward, I used to say I was a perfectionist, and probably still am to some extent, but I don't think it's necessarily about that. It has to feel authentic and aligned for me to move forward with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am curious, like, how has your coaching business evolved over time? Because you started out like aiming to help therapists, right? With their finances.
Yes.
It's kind of like focused in a little bit.
Yes. I've gone through kind of different niches, or kind of refining it. And each niche I have learned something more about it. And I remember when I first started, and I realized, oh, I thought I had a niche, but apparently I don't. And that was a big aha moment. So then I've really just kind of taken a step back and look, and I did this in my therapy practice as well, because I had a really hard client a couple of years ago, and I took a step back and I said, who do I really enjoy working with?
Yeah.
And that was a big part of that process. And it didn't come to me overnight. So I kind of let it come to me. And the same thing happened with this. So I started out, high touch one-on-one, which I still have. I love my one-on-one clients, because you get to have just a different relationship. But I also realized that I was getting capped out, and I could only do so much of that. And there were so many more people out there that needed this to help them, with
there needed to be a little bit more scaling.
Yeah, with money. Yeah. And so then I said, well, maybe I'll do a small group, and, and that kind of evolved. So But then as part of that process, as I really realized, I took a step back, and so many of my clients that I was working with also had ADHD. And, they were asking me for these different things of, oh, I would love to have a community. Are there other people doing this together?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was doing one-on-one, I was starting to add some different things. So I started to add a co-working, so body doubling. And I started to add some other, I have a money mindset call, a business strategy call, all these different things because it's what they were asking for. So I thought, well, yeah, of course. And I actually have one of my clients and said this to me a couple weeks ago and said, if we didn't have these co-working sessions, I would have given this up a long time ago. There is no way I would have done this. And I think there's just such a power of community. And that's how I've started both of my businesses, is relationship based.
Yeah.
And so as I've kind of stepped into this next chapter, is therapists with ADHD, because there's so many, it's just something about having somebody else that is also in that space. And I see the safety with it, oh, I can actually say that I'm struggling with this, and you're not going to look at me like I have 5 eyes.
Right.
Why didn't you just do this or whatever it is?
Like, how could this possibly be hard for you, right?
Yes.
It's like,
and then we don't want to share it.
This is how my brain works. That's why.
And then you tell me this, and now I feel worse, and now I'm really not going to share anything with you. And so I've just kind of seen that, and I'm so passionate about community and having people to do it together. And I think the money side of this business, again, we're not taught it, but particularly when we can't find somebody that understands how our brain works.
Yeah. And understands the industry, I think, as well. And what you are like brainwashed into thinking in school.
Yes.
Because you have talked in many different places about how it's really hard for therapists to set pricing and to increase pricing and everything else. Right?
Exactly. And I'm really big about capacity as well, especially, with neurodiversity and what that looks like. Because as I said earlier, my capacity is not what somebody else's is. So why do I have to set it up like this person is? So I start with capacity, and then I look at what I need to make. And then I figure out how to design my business around that.
Yeah. And it like setting up your pricing around that, around like what you want your life to look like, or what you need your life to look like, can take some of that judgment away, right? Because it's not like I am like overcharging people. It's like, no, I'm charging people so that I can work with the right number of people doing this thing that I'm really good and really love and it can really help people with, right? It's like, it's not arbitrary. It's because
it's not personal, numbers are numbers and they don't lie. But if I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of my people. No. And you're not going to get the best therapist out of me.
No. Yeah. So in all of this realization, in this excitement to like spread this magic and empowerment to other therapists with ADHD, what do you have coming up, my friend?
Oh my gosh. I have so many good things. So, so I've got 2 really big things coming up, and they're both connected. So, through this process, the first part is myself and Amber Duggar, who is the founder of Profit for Keeps, are having our first cohort specifically for ADHD therapists. It's called the ADHD Practice and Profit Cohort, a Profit for Keeps experience. And we're limited it to only 24 individuals. We are going to have rest weeks built in. We are doing it with you. So this is not I'm going to give you a module to watch and you have your checklist and you go set it up. So Amber is actually going to be working with a therapist, and I'm going to be in the Zoom room with everybody else, and we're going to set up our money systems together. We're going to figure out our revenues together, and it's going to be really cool. It's 6 months. 1 week out of the month, we have a rest week, and it's really built of community. we're going to have lots of fun, different milestones, because we know that we need the shiny objects. That's what keeps us going. But I think the big thing is this is all about a community of neurodiverse individuals and how we work. I know I'm going to fall off at some point in my budget. I still do it, but I'm not going to judge you when it happens, and you're going to be able to come back at whatever point. So that is also something that's built in, is we're not expecting perfect. We're here to meet you where you're at and welcome you back with open arms whenever that does happen, when life gets overwhelming, to get back on that. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, which I'm also super excited about, is we're doing a 5-day challenge. It's called the Predictable Pay Challenge, July 27th through 31st. And it's going to be at noon Eastern time each day. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it.
Amazing.
Yes.
You want to give people a little taste of what they might experience?
Yes. So this is going to be for therapists with ADHD. You don't have to have a diagnosis of ADHD tendencies, and we're going to geek out. We're going to have fun. And so it's going to be over the 5 days from starting at noon. And the first day, we're going to be talking all about money mindset and helping you figure out, okay, now I need to set myself up to be able to do this. Then we're going to be talking about, what do you want your life to do? That's the profit for joy of, okay, what is it that when you look forward, what do you want your life to look like? What is your why behind it? And then we're going to also look at your business and personal finances and help you with your revenue goals. And then just really bring it all together so you can leave. It's called the Predictable Pay Challenge. We're going to build a toolkit over the week, and you're going to leave with a predictable pay blueprint, is what the end goal is. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. And then if people want to take it a little deeper with you, they can join the program.
Yeah, absolutely. And the website is already up. The cohort kicks off August 10th. And we actually already have some of the spots taken, which is exciting. And at any point, you can book a profit strategy session to see, what is this about? Is this the right fit for me? Does this make sense? When is that? What does this look like? And no matter what happens on that call, I can guarantee you're going to have a next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is so powerful to have, even just because that's all we usually need, at least to start off with, is that first step to get moving, to be feeling like we're okay. Somebody understands me, and because I know what to do next.
Yes.
Which is
give me some guidance. I always say, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Don't tell me go figure it out yourself and ask me to do it, because I have no clue when I'm coming back.
Fine, I'll be back in 18 months.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to find. We'll see what's in my bucket.
Amazing. So we will include all the links to join the challenge, the landing page for the cohort. So it'll be in the show notes for people to reach out, connect. Is there anywhere else you want to point people towards?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Money Coach Maren, and I'm actually getting ready to do a fun series. It's all about ADHD, which is going to be super fun. And then I've also got my Facebook group, Profit Reviews for Therapists, as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we will include everything in the show notes. Everybody, Maren is like a money magician. She's so good at this, and she is such a generous spirit. Like, if you're a therapist with ADHD, run and sign up. And thank you for being here, Maren, and sharing so generously. And thank you, everybody who's watched. If you like this show, please subscribe, rate. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks so much.